Well, hello there. Welcome back for more Drummer Daily. If you didn't know, that's what you're listening to right now. I know sometimes on my phone, which is where I listen to podcasts, sometimes you listen to one podcast and the podcast ends, and without even realizing it, it just scrolls on to the next podcast, and it may or may not even be the same show, maybe some other shows. So I always like to make sure you know what you're listening to. In case you don't know, this is episode number 161. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. I think anytime that I can have a cup of coffee and talk about drums, I'm doing all right. And I am doing both right now. So let's get into it. So today, I wanted to kind of bring up something that I apply to my life fairly frequently, to my drumming. And that is, a lot of times I just have I'm sure you're no different than I am. I have a lot of responsibilities throughout the day, a lot of things to do. Some of them are drumming related, and some of them are related to, some of the things that I do, for drummers, for you, like, this podcast, or, writing an email newsletter or whatever it is, and other things that I have going on. And then some are family related, or, things I want to do around the house, just whatever, other things going on. And I always try to make sure that I make time for drumming. And to be honest, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I used to be of the mindset that if I was going to practice drums, I needed to make sure, there was like a minimum amount of time that I had to spend practicing drums. And, maybe in my own mind, it was like, well, I gotta leave the house in 30 minutes. I know I've got nothing to do from now until 30 minutes from now, but and I know I need to practice drums, but 30 minutes really isn't long enough to do it. Or maybe 45 minutes or whatever it is. And eventually I caught myself, and I was like, I was watching a talk that Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, the entrepreneur, was doing. And he was just talking about trying things out as an entrepreneur. And he was like, he said something like, if you try a bunch of things and they fail, but you have one thing that's a winner, you still got one thing that's a winner. So it's like, he was like, if 1 out of 7 things work, that's still better than 0 out of 0 things working. And that's kind of the mindset that I'd say I've adopted now about drum practice, which is any amount of practice on the drums is better than no practice on the drums. There's not a minimum amount of time that you have to practice where it, quote unquote, does any good. So for me now, if I have the ability, even 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, and that's all I've got to practice drums today, I'm going to do it. And I wanted to share with you what I do in those situations. So basically, if you don't have much time to practice today or at any given moment, what should you do with the time that you have? And this is just my opinion. You may disagree. I'd love to know if you do. I'd love to know if you agree. You can send me an email at daniel@danielhadaway.com either way. But for me, this is my opinion. If I don't have much time to practice, what I'm going to do is this, and this is something that if you followed along with the podcast for a long time, I talked about this a lot, I know, in the early days of the podcast, and that is, I am a big fan of playing along with music. So playing along with real recorded music, even if it already has drums in it, playing along with, just like you would do. I used to do it as a kid, and I found out that and working with a lot of drummers, I found out that a lot of drummers, for some reason, felt like they kind of grew out of that. Like, it was kind of a thing you did to play, like playtime, like fun as a kid, but then as you got older, you kind of grew out of it. I never grew out of it. Of course, I never grew out of playing. I'd play with some G.I. Joes right now if I had some in front of me. So, which is why, by the way, I'm really excited that my son is growing up a little older. He's got a lot of Star Wars figures now, and I actually really enjoy playing with those with him. But don't tell him that it's for me. It's fine with me if he keeps thinking his dad is just really cool that he likes to play with Star Wars toys with him. Anyway, but I never grew out of playing along with music, and I never really saw why I should. And I think that's what it helps me stay sharp and practice in an efficient way. I don't believe there are really any shortcuts in drumming, but I do believe that there is a way to get the most out of your practice time. And I think for most of us in the situations we're in playing drums, playing along with music, and hopefully music that's been recorded with the click track, is going to be the most beneficial to us. Even if you never plan to play with the click track, playing with music that's been recorded with the click track, or just playing along with the click track, is a good way to make sure that you teach your mind and your body how to maintain a steady tempo. I think maybe the one exception to this, and the one exception to pretty much everything, is if you're going to be playing jazz music. I get that that's a little different. But for most of us, playing along with music is going to be the way to make the most of even a short amount of practice time. But the most important thing is, I don't even care if you don't play with music. The most important thing is you just got to play along with music. You just got to play drums. It doesn't matter if you play along with music. Just practice. Just do something. One out of 7 is better than 0 out of 0. And some practice is always going to be better than no practice. Now, of course, if you find yourself without much time to practice ever, maybe look and see if there's a way to rearrange some things where you do have more time for practice. If you decide that's a priority for you. I definitely personally am a fan of keeping my family first. But I believe that I am able to spend plenty of time with my family and meet all of my other responsibilities and still have time for drumming. And so I want to challenge you that if you feel like you don't have enough time to play drums right now, I know we all go through tough, busy seasons where maybe things aren't as easy to do, to find time to play drums, things like that. But if you find yourself with no way out, you think there's nothing about my situation is going to change, and as far as the amount of time I have to play drums, I would maybe look at rearranging some things to see if maybe there is some extra space you can squeeze in somewhere to play drums. But if you are in a season where it's tough, just remember that it's just that. It's just a season and things can change. That's one thing that I always count on, and this isn't really drumming related, but I've always kind of held on to the fact that things will change. If things are going really great, I am able to avoid taking them for granted now because I remind myself that this might change, that this might go away. So I am able to enjoy every moment, when I'm touring and playing drums or recording drums, whatever it is, things like that. I always remind myself that this might change tomorrow, and so I enjoy it while I have it. And then the other thing is, if things aren't going well, I also can count on that things are going to change, and it's encouraging to me to know that things won't always be this hard. They do get easier, they do get better eventually. So I hope that encourages you as well, and we'll talk again real soon on Drummer Daily. Bye for now.